everyone, it's Sylvia here from Casino Library and welcome to Tangles on Tuesday. In this series, we're going to take you through the process of creating beautiful art pieces known as Zentangle. Hi Tanglers, welcome back to another Tangles on Tuesday. This is Sylvia and today I'd like to show you two new tangles, starting off with one called Flux. Now Flux is a leafy looking tangle and I'm going to show you a couple of different variations on this today. You can do it in a couple of different ways as well. Some people like to start by drawing a bit of a center line, a guideline for doing their flux. And you start by drawing, it's almost like an oversized teardrop, like this. So this is the more traditional shape of flux, and you can draw each of these shapes in various sizes as we go. But the next one I'm going to do is going to come off the back of this one, and it's going to come up and around and down. I could make it quite tall, I could make it small, but I'm just going to see what happens as we go. Remembering to hold your pen just nice and loosely, not too firm. You don't want to be pressing down too hard with your pen, and just coming up, coming around and bringing that back down like I have here. So that's my second one. So it is like a teardrop or maybe a bit of a dewdrop shape. Tell me what you think. Leave your thoughts in the comments below. So my next one, I'm going to work it off the back again and come into here because I've drawn in my line as a guide, which you don't have to do, but some of you might find it a lot easier to do that when starting out with this tangle. And you'll notice that you will learn to draw backwards like I'm doing when I say backwards. Using your hand and drawing different directions, you will train yourself to do that. So here's my other one I've popped in here. So they don't all have to be uniform. They can be quite varied in size. So we'll keep going. I might do, let's see, if I turn it around it makes more sense. Keep turning your card so that you've got it in a position that's comfortable for you. So that means that it feels right when you're drawing. So there you go. I've popped in another one here. Now, I don't know how I'll go trying to draw this upside down, but we'll find out. So looking at it here, I'm going to come up and around and just bringing that down in. So again, a different size and coming up, tucking that under. So I'm not great at drawing this upside down, but I thought it might give you a better perspective, but that's okay. Whatever we do is going to be right for us because there is no right or wrong. And when I did that last one, I used the top of my center line and brought that in. So that line that I drew in initially really isn't visible anymore. As such, it's blended in with each of these petals that I've drawn here. So you can see that's come together quite nicely. Now the next step with the flux is we can add a vein to each of these leaves. Just a simple line coming up and curving. So it's not a direct straight line. I've kind of curved it to follow that shape of the petal and or that leaf, and it keeps it really nice and soft. That's what I like about doing that. And I'm going to do that in each one. It doesn't have to be the full length of that leaf or that petal, whatever you choose to call it. But you can see the difference between adding in that line and not adding it in. Now you don't have to include it. Again, it's your tangle. It's entirely up to you how you choose to embellish. I like to show you a few options and variations, so I'm going to continue with that. So I've added in those veins on those petals and just added in 3 little dots at the end of each vein just to add some extra interest there. Now I can keep going with this tangle. Okay, so we can also add in some other little petals in between these larger ones, and we can also just draw them in as if they're just free floating around our main tangle. And I'm still going to add in those little veins and dots on those. I just think it gives it something a little bit extra. Just dresses it up nicely. So that's the main gist of Flux. Now this tangle can be drawn in a couple of different ways, and you will find your own style. All right, so I'm just going to work in this other corner, and I'm going to show you a couple of the other ways that I've seen it drawn. And again, I just want you to find your particular style with it. So when you're doing it, you can actually give it a bit more emphasis on that top part as you come around. So a little bit more of an arc in here, whereas this tends to be a bit smoother. You can take that even one step further and really give it a bit like a comma, apostrophe effect, and it's really up to you. And I have seen it drawn so that it's quite elongated and quite different again, so this way. So there are lots of variations, and I'm sure that you will find a style that works for you. And well, there's no reason you can't mix the 3 of them. And if you find another way to do it, I would love to see what you've come up with. And if you can add those to the comments below, that'd be great. So there you go. It's looking a bit like a golf club, but that's the effect that you can get when you are playing with Flux. So do have a play with that and see what you can come up with. I quite like that. As all our tangles are, they're nice, simple, fun. So that one for you is Flux. The other tangle I'd like to show you today is called Printemps, and this is one of the original tangles designed by Rick Roberts and Maria Thomas, and the word is actually French for spring. And it looks like a coil, and you start in the center and you simply come around 3 or 4 times, and you finish off by bringing your pen in to that edge there, bringing it back into the closest line that you have. So it's a coil starting in the middle and coming around 3 to 4 times. So when I'm doing it, I like to start and I just count 1, 2, 3, 4, and just bringing that back into the closest line to your pen. Now, I don't necessarily count out loud. That was just to give you an example, but I'm always counting it out in my head. I just find it gives me a bit more rhythm, helps me just helps me bring that tangle together. And again, you can vary the size of these. They can be smaller, they can be larger, and we can also add some variation to them. Again, they're great if you want to fill in a larger space, or you could use it as a filler on one of your other tangles. That's no problem at all. And when we were doing Holly Bar, you'll find this is similar, so that when your pen comes to touch one that's already been drawn, you will stop. Imagine where that would pass through the existing tangle, and pick that up on the other side and continue your spiral around. So like I have here, so I'll do another one for you just in this spot. So you'll start with your spiral, coming around 3 or 4 times, and if you look like touching one that's already existing, if you can brush past it and keep your form, great. If not, you just stop and start on the other side of it. So Printemps comes together really nicely, nice and easy one. 3 and 4, and just passing that through and finishing it off by coming back into the closest line. Now we can vary this. What we can do is give it what looks like a little bit of light or sparkle or reflection happening in it. And we do that by creating the first part, and I'm going to stop. So my first part of my spiral and stop, because what we're going to do is create some line breaks in the general area, in the same general area. So by that, doing my first part of the spiral and stopping, then I've left just a small gap and I've started the next part of the spiral and stopped where my first one did, and creating that small gap. And I'm going to do that 3 or 4 times. I've got 2, so it's almost like not quite a full circle or a full spiral, and you can see that little gap happening. And I'll do one more, so that'll give me 4. So starting and stopping where the previous line did, and I hope you can see that that gap gives the effect of light reflecting, or a little bit of sparkle happening. So if I keep doing that with some of the others, so just doing almost, think of it as the letter E. So if I turn that around, sorry if I turn that around for you, think of it maybe as just doing the letter E and stopping, then leaving a small gap and doing our the next part of our spiral, but not going all the way around, actually stopping and leaving that small gap like we did with this one. So let's go around again, and remembering if it looks like you're going to cross over an existing tangle, you stop, because they always pass behind or under each other. They don't actually go over the top of one another, like our very first tangle holly bar. And I'm going to add one more. So I'm going to hit this tangle here and stop. I'm going to imagine where that line would continue through and pick up on the other side and come around and stop. So you can see how that creates that small gap, bit of a sparkle, as opposed to doing your full completed spiral here. Again, just really is simply a matter of choice and what you like the look of. So we'll add in one more. So doing a letter E, so that's that center of your spiral, and stop, leave a gap, a mil or so, a couple of mil, come round and stop, repeating. So where it looks, where I'm going to run into this existing tangle, I stop, I imagine where that's going to resume. And I also stopped here because I didn't want to draw across that tangle there. I would have closed off the line and it would have cut off that reflection, that sparkle that's happening there. 1, 2, 3, and one more. Sometimes it makes me think of little periwinkles that you'd see in the rock pools at the beach. So I'm hoping that gives you an idea, the difference between a complete spiral and stopping and starting, so that we have this lovely reflection happening. So that's our Printemps. Now we can actually do some shading with that as well. So taking my pencil, there's a few different ways we could just highlight that center of the Printemps if we wish to. Just highlighting just that center with our pencil, adding a little bit of definition. We could, if we wanted to, highlight just one side or one area, so shading. I'm going to do the same side on each Printemps that I've drawn, just to add a bit of light shading. Just play with it to see what different effects you get. And if you've got a blending tool handy, like a paper stump, you can just gently blend that, which smooths it and softens the look of that shading. If you don't have a paper stump, a blending tool, try a cotton tip, even try the tip of your finger. But you can see how that's just smoothed that out, added that extra depth. And I'll do the same for these ones where it was just shading the edge, and that will actually push that that shading. I can actually push it around with the blending tool. No, it sounds funny, but I can kind of extend and make my pencil go further. That's why when you do add your pencil initially, you don't need to add a lot to it. Okay, so there I've added some shading. So the combination of the shading and just doing those part circles, leaving that little gap, and some really nice interest and sparkle. So there you are. That is Printemps. So here's what I came up with from last week's challenge tile. And as we know, there is no correct orientation with our tiles, our finish and tangle. It can go any way, up, down, left, right, any way you want. So I'm not really sure which way this one wants to sit, but I'm quite happy with how that turned out. So that was using the tangles that we learnt last week, which the vertigo here and up the side, and our sprig here and here, and I popped in a bit of vertigo just because I had that triangle shape there, and just felt that that's what I wanted to pop in, and just another little vertigo that I popped in here, and a few little tipple circles just to add some more emphasis and a bit of shading. So I'd love to see what you came up with, so please share your Zen Tangles in the comments below. So this is your challenge tile for this week, just a random string that I've drawn in. Feel free to practice this week's tangles in that tile, so you'll be practicing the flux and the printemps that we've done here today, and have a play and choose which other tangles you'd like to pop in there from the tangles that we've been doing over the last 10 weeks. So have a play and see what you can come up with. If you've got your pencil, don't be afraid to practice some shading. So I look forward to seeing your creations when we meet again next week.
In the comments below, you'll find a link to the practice sheet that I've been using here today. You'll also find a link to this week's challenge tile. If you're unable to access these from your computer at home, we'll make some packs available. All you have to do is give us a call on 666 00 250 and give us a day or two to get those ready for you. That pack will also include some pre-cut 3.5 by 3.5 inch tiles to get you started. We also have a Hobbies and Crafts Reference Centre, which is a part of our e-resources that are available on our library website. And remember, if you'd like to receive instant updates when new content is added to our YouTube channel, please click the subscribe button. Thanks for joining us here today, and we'll see you next week for another Tangles on Tuesday.